Okay, so this is take 2 of your review sheet number 1-3. Again, your test is on Friday, October 26th. So you should be watching the video by then. So numbers 1 and 2, another simplifying exponent. So first, you're going to actually raise everything to that second power that's in the parentheses. So this is 4 times 9x to the negative 8th, y to the 12th, divided by, the bottom is all being cubed. So this is now 8 x to the 15th, y to the negative 21st. On top, 4 times 9 gives me 36, x to the negative 8th, y to the 12th, divided by 8, x to the 15th, y to the negative 21st. I need to move my negative exponents, so this has to be moved and this has to be moved. So 36 divided by 8. This you can type right into your calculator and press math, enter, enter. It gives you a simplified fraction. That simplified fraction is 9/2. And then you have, when you switch these around, y to the 12th stays up here. And y to the positive 21st joins it. And then the bottom is going to be x to the 15th, x to the 8th to move that negative exponent. So lastly, when we clean this up, this is 9/2. The y's combine to be y to the 33rd in the top, and then the x's combine to be x to the 23rd. And this here is my final answer. Similarly, for number 2, we have more exponents. So here, everything here is being raised to the negative second power. So I can raise everything inside to the negative second, or I can go ahead and move it to the bottom because the whole thing is being raised to a negative exponent. So if I move my exponents right away, this is also being raised to a negative exponent. I would have 5y to the positive 4th divided by 7x to the 18th times 2x to the negative 7th, y to the negative 3rd raised to the positive 2nd. That way when I do this now, this is 5y to the 4th, all divided by 7x to the 18th times 2 squared is 4, x to the negative 7th squared is x to the negative 14th. And then x to the negative 3rd squared is y to the negative 3rd squared is y to the negative 6th. So now when I move everything around again, I'm going to have to do it again with my negative exponents. This is negative and this is negative. So now I have 5y to the 4th, x to the 14th, y to the 6th, all divided by 4 times 8 is 28, x to the 18th. And lastly, I just have to simplify those, the variables. So 5 divided by 28, there's nothing I can do there. That stays 5 divided by 28. That's in simplest form. Y to the 4th times y to the 6th gives me y to the 10th. And then x to the 14th divided by x to the 18th gives me x to the 4th in the denominator. That's it for exponents. So then we move into inverse. Right, this means find the inverse. We need to know how to do this. So first, I'm going to switch x and y. So remember, f of x is really your y term. So now I have x equals 5/6y plus 25. So to solve for y, I'm going to subtract 25. And now I have 5/6y. To get y by itself, I'm going to multiply. I could divide by 5/6, but similarly, and I think it's easier to, instead of dividing by a fraction, you multiply by the reciprocal, right? We've talked about that a whole bunch in class. So multiply by the reciprocal and it gets easier. So this just becomes y equals, which we know that my answer I have to write in this form. And then I distribute the 6/5. So 6/5 times x is just 6/5x. And then 6/5 times negative 25 is negative 30. Number 4. Same thing, we're finding the inverse. So when I switch x and y, I get x equals y plus 7 squared minus 15. So I know that in class we talked about how important it is to know that something plus 7 squared really is that something plus 7 times that something plus 7 again. So we talked about how you have to expand it. In this case, though, it's easier not to do that. So do not do that, because here you're just solving for y. You're not simplifying anything, you're just solving for y. So I'm going to add 15 to both sides. Now I'm here. And then the way that I get rid of this exponent of a 2 is by taking the square root. So take the square root. You have x plus, the square root of x plus 15 equals y plus 7. And then lastly, I'm going to subtract the 7 over. So I know, again, my answer has to be written in the right notation. This is negative 7 plus the square root of x plus 15. The reason why it's not plus or minus the square root is because here you're finding the function. And if you have plus or minus, then that is not actually a function. So you would just leave it as either the plus or the minus would be acceptable. 5, 6, and 7, these questions are dealing with just solving the following equations. These all end up being quadratics, and you know 3 ways to solve a quadratic. So I'm going to go through these 3 questions and do the 3 different ways. Okay? So for number 5, I'm going to do completing the square. You don't have to do this. It doesn't say which method to use, so you can do whatever you want. Number 6, I'm going to factor that. And then number 7, I'm going to do quadratic formula. So for number 6, I'm going to do completing the square. So first I need to move the 100 to the other side. So this is 2x squared plus 24x equals negative 100. Next, I need my a value to be equal to 1, so I have to divide everything by 2. So this is x squared plus 12x equals negative 50. So that's everything I need for completing the square, so now I can actually go through and do it. So completing the square, half it, then square it, half it, then square it. So when I half it, I'm halving the 12, I get x plus 6. And then that number squared gets added back up to the line above. So I'm going to add 36, add 36. So negative 50 plus 36 gives me negative 14. So then I take the square root because I'm solving for x. So this is x plus 6 is equal to plus or minus the square root of negative 14. The only thing that I can do here, which I need to do, is take out an I because I have a negative inside of the radical, right? That's an imaginary number, so it's I square root of 14. And then lastly, I have to subtract that 6 over. So x equals negative 6 plus or minus I square root of 14 is my final answer. Number 6. Number 6, I am going to factor this. Please do not subtract over 7 over x. Instead, put this over 1 and cross multiply. That way it gets rid of any fractions that you're working with. So this is really 6x squared plus 19x equals 7. I'm going to subtract over the 7. And now I'm going to factor. So I look for a master product always first, but there isn't one here. So I'm going to go right ahead, and with my 3 terms, I am going to do master product. So 6 times negative 7 is negative 42. I need 2 numbers that multiply to be negative 42 but add to be 19. So that's going to be positive 21 and negative 2. So this is now 6x squared plus 21x minus 2x minus 7 equals 0. Split it down the middle. Take out a 3x and I am left with 2x plus 7. On the other side, I'm going to take out a negative 1 and I'm left with 2x plus 7 equals 0. So now this is really 3x minus 1 times 2x plus 7 equals 0. Remember though, you are solving, so you have to set each one equal to 0 and then get your answers being x equals. So here I get x equals, add over the 1, divide by 3 is 1/3. This one, 2x plus 7 equals 0. You're going to subtract 7 and then divide by 2. So negative 7 over 2 is my other solution. And then my last one here, we have 3x to the second plus 2x minus 10. So I'm going to subtract the 10 over. Change my color here. Subtract the 10 over. So this is 3x squared plus 2x minus 10 equals 0. I'm going to do quadratic formula. So quadratic formula has to be set equal to 0. So then I can go through, say x equals negative b. So negative 2 plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2 times a. So next I'm going to say, okay, x equals negative 2 over 6 plus or minus the square root of something over 6. This piece here I'm going to type into my calculator, and I get 124, which I have to simplify. The square root of 124 is really the square root of 4 times the square root of 31. So x equals negative 2 over 6 plus or minus 2 square root of 31 over 6. And then I just simplified those fractions with the 2 over 6's. So my final answer really should be x equals negative 1 over 3 plus or minus 1 square root of 31 over 3 as my final answer. Moving on to number 8. So 8 through 10, you're writing the polynomial equation of least degree. We did this in class also. So for this, you are going to set each of these roots equal to x. And then you're going to set each of them equal to 0 when you multiply. So this is x plus 7 equals 0, and x minus 5 equals 0. So I'm going to take this piece here and this one here, and I'm going to multiply those together to get my answer. So this is x plus 7 times x minus 5. So when I multiply that, I should get x squared plus 2x minus 35 is equal to f of x. That's my function. So that's all you're doing for 8 through 10. Numbers 9 and 10, though, are a little bit different because here you just had rational and real solutions. But here, you don't. You have negative 2, 0, and then 4i, which is imaginary. So keep in mind that if you have 4i, you also have negative 4i. So I have one root is x equals 0. Another one is x equals negative 2. Then you have x equals 4i and x equals negative 4i. So I'm going to set them all equal to 0 and then I multiply. So here, this is already done. So this is x times, I add over the 2, gives me x plus 2. This one I subtract over the 4i, so this is x minus 4i. And then this is x plus 4i. Remember, you can only multiply two things at a time. So I'm going to multiply these two together and these two together. So when I do the first two, that gives me x squared plus 2x. And then the second two, it's going to give me x squared plus 4ix minus 4ix, which are going to cancel out, and then minus 16i squared. So these cancel here. So I have to still do x squared plus 2x times x squared plus 16, right? Because I squared is negative 1. So negative 16 times negative 1 gives me a positive 16. So then lastly, when I multiply these two together, my final answer should be f of x equals x to the 4th plus 2x to the 3rd plus 16x squared plus 32x as my answer for number 9. And then number 10, I have x equals 5, x equals 7 plus the square root of 2, which means because I have an irrational, meaning the radical, I also have x equals 7 minus the square root of 2. You have to have conjugates. So here this gives me x minus 5. This one is x minus 7 minus the square root of 2. And this one is x minus 7 plus the square root of 2. Again, you're going to multiply these two together. That way it cancels out your radicals. So x minus 5 just gets brought down for now. And then this is x squared minus 7x plus x square root of 2. So you can do this on your own. Okay, the only one that might be weird is that negative square root of 2 times positive square root of 2, right? That really is negative square root of 4, which is negative 2. So look how nice, though, this works out. This is x minus 5 times x squared, negative 7x, and negative 7x is negative 14x. X square root of 2 minus x squared of 2 cancel each other out. Negative 7 square root of 2, positive 7 square root of 2 cancel each other out. So this 49 minus 2 gives me a positive 47. And then I just have to multiply these out. Again, you can do that on your own, right? There's no radicals or anything. You should be able to multiply those two. Your final answer, so I'm not doing all of the work, is x to the third minus 19x squared plus 117x minus 235. 11 through 13, determine the point and the line equidistant to the following parabolas. So the point is the focus and the line is the directrix. So let's go through and see what we know. So here, this parabola is vertical and it is concave down because P is negative. So this goes down. My vertex is 1 comma negative 2. So draw it out if you have to. 1 comma negative 2 is down here. And then P is equal to 4P is negative 12. So P is equal to negative 3. So I'm going to go down 3 more units from 1, negative 2. So this is what my parabola looks like. Concave down. And then when I go up 3, 1, 2, 3 at 1, that's my directrix. So my focus here is going to be 1 comma negative 5, and then my directrix is y equals 1. For number 12, same concept. So you guys draw, and I'm not going to draw all of these. I'm just going to kind of tell you everything you need to know for the parabola. So this is a vertical parabola. It's concave up because 8 is positive. 4P is equal to 8, which means that P is equal to 2. My vertex is 8 comma 8. So my focus, I'm going up 2 units from 8 comma 8. So that point would be 8 comma 10. My directrix, I'm going down 2 units from 8 comma 8. But remember, this is a line. So this is going to be y equals, and then 8 comma 8 minus 2 would be 8 comma 6, but it's just your y, the entire y value because it's the line. And then number 13, this is another vertical parabola, but it's concave down because this is a negative 8. P is equal to negative 2. My vertex is negative 4 comma 0. There's no number here with the y, so it is a 0. So then when I'm doing this, I need to go down 2 units. So if I go down from negative 4 comma 0 for my focus, when I go down 2, I'm at negative 4 comma negative 2. And then for my directrix, to go up 2, I would be at y equals positive 2. Okay? Again, I'm not going to go through and draw them, but I think that you should. There's graph paper on the back of your answer sheet. Make sure that you know how to do this so that on your test on Friday you don't have any issues. And number 14, determine the equation in vertex form. So it gives you the focus and the directrix, and you're supposed to tell me what the equation is. So these I would definitely graph because these I always confuse. So negative 7 comma 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is right here. That's the focus. My directrix is at y equals 3. So right there about. This means that my parabola is going to be concave up. right? It's going to be vertical. So the point in the middle is going to be at, my vertex is -7, 4. It's going to be concave up. And then P is equal to, this is my parabola, I'm going up 1 unit to get to the focus. So P is equal to 1. So remember, this is your form. You need to memorize this. X minus h squared equals 4P times y minus k. That's vertex form. So when I plug this in, it's x plus 7 squared equals 4 times 1 is 4. Y minus 4 is my final answer for number 14. 15 and 16 are the same questions in that they give you the focus and the directrix and they want the equation of the parabola. So here, I suggest again that you draw it. So 2 comma -10. Let me zoom in on this so it gets a little bit bigger. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 2 -10 is all the way down here, and my directrix is y equals 0 up here. So if I count in the middle of these, my vertex is going to be at 2 comma -5, right about here. That's going to be 2 comma -5. Now my parabola, it has to hug my focus, so it's going to be concave down, which means that P is going to be a negative number. So if I count from my vertex to my focus in that order, I'm going down 5. So P is -5. So this, the equation of this parabola is x minus 2 squared equals -20 y plus 5 for number 15. 16, similarly, same thing. So my focus is 1 comma 5. And my directrix is y equals -1 right here. Okay, be careful that you don't confuse that with the x-axis. So if I go right in the middle, I'm going to be 3 in between each. So I'm going to be at 1 comma 2. This parabola is going to be concave up, so it hugs the focus. And my p-value, I am going up by 3 for number 16. So my equation of the parabola is going to be x minus 1 squared equals 4 times 3 is 12, y minus 2. 17 and 18 and 19, they give you the equation in standard form and you have to find the vertex form. So you do that by completing the square. So for number 17, first I'm going to add over the 12 equals x squared plus 4 x. Okay, a is already 1 here, so I'm just going to half the 4 and then square that number. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So this is y plus 16. And I would factor out the number in front of y, which is 1. So I don't have to, but if I wanted to factor out a 1, I could. And I'm left with this as my equation. Number 18. Number 18 is actually pretty messy because here you have a negative, you have an odd b value. So first I'm going to subtract the 8. Now I have x squared minus 9x. So when I cut that in half, I'm going to get x minus 9 over 2 squared. So if you remember, we did this a whole bunch when we were doing solving quadratics. So I'm going to add back 9 over 2 squared, which is going to be 81 over 4. So -8 plus 81 over 4. I can type that right into my calculator, press math, enter, enter, I get -49 over 4. And if I wanted to factor out a 1, I could, but I don't have to. So it would be 1 times y minus 49 over 4 equals x minus 9 over 2 squared. Again, this one was pretty messy because of the fractions. And then number 19, I'm going to subtract the 7. I have x squared plus 6x. complete the square, so you half it, then you square it, so plus 9 on both sides. So this is y plus 2 over here. If I want to factor out the 1, I'm left with y plus 2 as my equation in vertex form for number 19. All right, and now we're going to start the word problems. So number 20, I'm not going to go through the actual operations you're going to do. I'm just going to tell you what you have to do for these and how you have to think of them. Miss Lau runs a small dress company from 1995 to 2005. The number of dresses she made is N of X, and the average cost to make each of those dresses is C of X. And then X is the number of years since 1995. Write a polynomial equation T of X, so my answer has to be T of X equals something. That can be used to model her total dressmaking costs. So, for example, if I make dress and I make 20 dresses, and it costs me $5 to make each dress, then my total dressmaking cost would be 100, right? Because I'm spending $5 on 20 dresses, so you multiply. So that's what you do here. This would be T of X is equal to N of X times C of X. So when I do this, again, I'm not going to go through the whole thing to save a little bit of time. 0.3 x squared minus 1.6x plus 14. Make sure you're copying it down correctly. Be careful with the decimals. Minus 0.001 x squared minus 0.06x, and then plus 8.2. You know how to multiply, so I'm not going to go through that. So T of X, your final answer should be negative 0.003. I'm sorry, there's another 0.0003 x to the fourth minus 0.0164 x to the third, and then plus 2.542 x squared. We need more room. 542x squared minus 13.96x plus 114.8 as my final answer. Okay, just wanted the polynomial, that's all I was asking for. So you just have to actually multiply them. Number 21. The data from the U.S. Census Bureau shows that the total number of students is T of X. X is the number of years after 2005, and T of X is in thousands, so this is important. So we need to keep this in mind, and we need to keep this in mind, and then T of X is in thousands. Female students is F of X with the same rules. X is the number of years after 2005, and F is in thousands. Write the equation in standard form of M of X. M of X is the number of males. So think about it. If you know the total number and you know the total number of females, you have to subtract. So T of X minus F of X gives me M of X. Okay, I'm not going to go through the whole thing again, but M of X is equal to T of X is negative 10.4 x to the third plus 74.2 x squared minus 3.4x plus 8320.2, and then you have minus, again you can do this horizontally if you want also, 13.8 x to the third plus 55.3x squared, 141x, and then 7880. So with subtracting, you need to do keep, change, change. So this becomes plus, this becomes plus, this becomes minus, this becomes minus, and this becomes minus. Your final answer for M of X, you should get 3.4x to the third minus 55.3x squared minus 141. Oh, wait a minute, I'm not reading the right thing. I'm sorry, hold on. Don't erase your paper, don't erase your work. The 3.4 x to the third is good. 3.4 x to the third, and then plus 18.9 x squared minus 144.4 x plus 440.2. Okay. Second part, though, determine the total number of male students enrolled in 2007. 2007, the years are your x values. Okay, and again, your x values are the number of years after 2005. So here you need to find what is m of 2, because 2007 is 2 years after 2005. So I'm just going to plug 2 into everything here. Plug the whole thing into your calculator. Do 3.4 times 2 to the third plus 18.9 times 2 squared. Don't bother about doing each individual part. Just type the whole thing into your calculator. Make sure it matches your paper, and you should get 254.2. But remember, this is in thousands, and we're rounding to the nearest whole. So you keep this number in your calculator and do times 1,000 because it's in thousands, and you should get 254,200 students as your final answer for that. 22 is similar to the one that we did in class today. So for number 22, the width of a rectangular garden is represented by that function, x squared minus x minus 5, and the length is x squared minus 9x minus 11. Perimeter of the garden is 64 inches. Determine the dimensions. So remember, perimeter, this is what it's talking about. Perimeter is 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. So my perimeter is 64 here. That should be equal to 2 times the length, which is x squared minus 9x minus 11, plus 2 times the width, which is x squared minus x minus 5. So I'm going to just clean this all up and give you the final when you clean it up. You get 64 is equal to 4x squared minus 20x, and then minus 32. When you subtract over 96, 4x squared minus 20x minus 96. You know how to solve a quadratic. I'm not going to go through that for you. Okay, you have 3 options. You could factor this, you can do completing the square, or you can do quadratic formula. It's already set equal to 0 for you, so you can choose whichever one you want. So your answers here, you get x is equal to 8 and x is equal to negative 3. However, these are not your dimensions. That's what the question's asking for. So you would have to plug these both in and make sure, see if they work. So we have so we're going to do that over here, and I'll split it in half. We have we'll do x equals 8 first. So my length is 8 squared minus 9 times 8 minus 11, which gives me negative 19. So right away, x is not going to be equal to 8 because I can't have a negative length. This is a problem. So I have to try, so x equals 8 is not going to work. I have to try x equals negative 3. So if x equals negative 3, my length would be negative 3 squared minus 9 times negative 3 minus 11, which would be 25. And then my width, so that's okay, I can have 25. My width would be negative 3 squared minus negative 3 becomes plus 3 minus 5, which would give me 7. These are my dimensions. 25, I don't know if it's in it's in inches. 25 inches by 7 inches are my dimensions. Number 23 and 24, these are both parabolas that we practiced today, so we should be a little bit more familiar with them. For number 25, first this is just asking me here. So a rocket is launched from a hill 80 feet above a lake. So it starts up here already, and then it comes down and it goes down into a lake somewhere. Okay. It's going to fall into the lake after it's launched. The rocket's height above the surface is given by that function. and t is the time in seconds. What is the height of the rocket after 1.5 seconds? So this is saying what is the height, so what is the y value of the rocket when t is 1.5 seconds? So I need to do h of 1.5. So I plug it in. I do negative 16 times 1.5 squared plus 64 times 1.5 plus 80. And I get this to be 140 feet. So at 1.5 seconds after it's launched, it's 140 feet in the air. Okay, I'm going to erase this, so pause it if you need to. The next question talks about the maximum height. So maximum height, I need the vertex. I need to figure out what is the vertex. However, here I don't know how to do that. Okay, I don't know how to do it from here yet, so I need to put it into vertex form. So let's pretend that h of t is y. So this is y equals negative 16t squared plus 64t plus 80. I have to put this into standard vertex form. So this is y minus 80 equals negative 16t squared plus 64t. Divide everything by negative 16. So this is negative 1 over 16y plus 5 equals t squared minus 4t. So now I can do completing the square. So this is t minus 2 squared. I'm going to square it now. Add it back. So negative 1 over 16, negative 1 over 16, y plus 9 is what I have over here. But I have to factor out this negative 1 over 16. So that comes out. And I'm left with y minus. And then you do 9 divided by negative 1 over 16 into your calculator. Make sure you're careful with the fraction. Make sure it goes in parentheses. So it's going to be y minus 144 equals t minus 2 squared. So this y, remember, this is really h of t. So what is the maximum height? The height is the y value, so it's going to be the max is at 144 feet. After how many seconds that it's launched will the rocket hit the lake? So again, if you need to pause this, pause it. I'm going to erase this. You know what? I'm going to use that equation though. So I'm going to keep my vertex form with me for when I do this. You can still use standard form though to do it. So that was negative 1 over 16 times y minus 144 is equal to t minus 2 squared. Okay, so this wants to know about the when it hits the lake. So when it hits the lake, that's going to be at the ground level. So at the ground level, your y value, your height, is 0, and you're looking for the time. You're looking for t. So negative 1 over 16 times 0 minus 144 is equal to t minus 2 squared. So I'm going to type this into my calculator and end up getting 9 is equal to t minus 2 squared. When I take the square root of both sides, I end up with plus or minus 3 equals t minus 2. So when I add the 2 over, I get 2, I'll get rid of it over here. 2 plus 3 is 5, and 2 minus 3 is negative 1. However, you can't have a negative time. So at t equals 5 seconds is when it hits the lake. And that's my the last part to that question. And then lastly, number 24. When a ball is thrown into the air, the path that it travels is that parabola. So this is my ball that I throw. It's the parabola it is. So measured in feet. So this here, this is in feet, and this is in feet. Everything here is in feet. Determine the maximum height. So the maximum height that deals with my vertex. This vertex is 18, 10. So this here is 18. and this up here is 10. So the maximum height is the y value. The maximum height is going to be 10 feet. And it reaches at 18 feet in front of the person that just threw it. Second question, determine how far the ball travels before it hits the ground. The ground has a height of 0, right? We've been talking about this the past 3 days. So I'm going to plug in y equals 0 to solve for x. So this is negative 162 over 5 times 0 minus 10 is equal to x minus 18 squared. So over here, this ends up giving me 324 is equal to x minus 18 squared. Take the square root of both sides. I get plus or minus 18 is equal to x minus 18. Add the 18 over, so I get 18 plus or minus 18. So at x equals 0, which is where the ball was thrown, and x equals 36. So how far it travels? It goes 36 feet before it hits the ground as my answer here. Okay. Remember, extra help is Thursday after school. If you have any questions, you can come and find me then. Good luck studying.